Howdy there, Isaac here. Last time, Cell and his new son, Soma, ended up traveling the cosmos and training in preparation to get revenge on Gohan. Things didn't quite turn out as Cell had wanted though, but he is on Earth now, and in front of Gohan of all people. Without further ado, let's see what may have happened if Cell survived. The story starts now. Gohan burst into Super Saiyan 2 and charged Cell, who pushed Goten out of the way and clashed with the Saiyan. "Ah, Gohan, nice to see you grown up, but relax. I was simply sparring with your brother, who's far more into training than you ever were." "What are you doing here, Cell? I thought you were wiped out in your explosion," Gohan yelled, attempting to power up and push Cell away. "Oh no, Gohan. I reformed and was made stronger. As for why I'm here, think of it as a challenge to everyone on Earth, and our arena will be the World Martial Arts Tournament." Cell let loose, showing off the monstrous power he had attained during these 7 years. He had achieved a level of power that the Saiyan didn't even think was possible. It was mind-boggling. But Gohan wasn't the only person feeling this power. Goten, Vegeta, Piccolo, Trunks, everyone on Earth could feel it, and they all knew who this was. Gohan was awestruck. Though he had kept up with his training, his power still wasn't enough here. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to do some last-minute training. You should do so as well. Oh, and Goten, make sure to get nice and strong with Gohan, okay? See you at the tournament." Cell then teleported away, leaving the two brothers to wonder how someone could be that strong. Goten would ask who Cell was, which prompted Gohan to tell him all about the Cell games, although the boy had trouble believing the nice bug man was really the same one from back then. I mean, he had been nice and encouraged Goten to fight, something he liked but Chi-Chi wasn't super fond of. But Gohan brushed this off as just simple manipulation. After a few minutes, Piccolo and Vegeta arrived, only for Gohan to explain the situation. All three of them agreed they needed to train, but Vegeta decided he wouldn't train with Gohan, since he had Trunks. Goten would attempt to say he could train to fight Cell, but Gohan, knowing what that life was like, didn't want his brother to grow up like that. However, after hearing the word please for the 1000th time, he relented and agreed to train Goten, on the condition he be far away from the battlefield, which Goten accepted. And so, the 9-month-long training began, which does include the humans since they did feel Cell's power spike. Gohan, Goten, and Piccolo would train together in the mountains, with Videl eventually joining since, well, blackmail. And I'm pretty sure Gohan would find some time between his training to stop some burglars, just so he could keep his, fighting sense up, or that's what he tells Piccolo at least. Vegeta and Trunks would train with the gravity chamber, although Vegeta would be a little disappointed that his son couldn't adjust to 500 times Earth's gravity as quickly as he did. Trunks wasn't as tough and didn't particularly enjoy the intense training, but he did attempt it, including some rather rough sparring sessions between the two. Overall, during this time, Goten, Videl, and Trunks make some serious gains, while Gohan and Vegeta get stronger, but not by a huge margin. I'd say they're still below Super Saiyan 3 Goku, but aren't that far off when fully powered up. Now, as for what's happening with Cell and his crew during these 9 months, well, before the training even begins, Cell says he needs to take a small break. He disappears into the nearby woods to think on something he's wanted to do for a while. See, he had been slowly realizing just how badly he had treated Soma, and while he couldn't go back and do it again, he did sort of want another child. He wanted a kid that he could raise better this time, that could just have fun and be itself without Cell pushing it like he did with Soma. This dream was only exacerbated when Cell had met Goten, not to mention Trunks was a kid now as well. So, with heavy baby fever, Cell decided to have another kid. About 2 weeks later, Cell rejoined his group with what looked like a slightly skinnier and lighter blue Cell Jr. behind him. He introduced her as May, named after myocytes, I know it's a different pronunciation but whatever, or muscle cells. She was a rather rambunctious child, being incredibly extroverted and hyper when everyone first met her. But most of all, she enjoyed fighting and training. So much so that Cell began spending a little less time with Soma and more with Mei. In reality, he was spending equal time with the two, but Soma was used to having all the attention on him. And while he didn't enjoy fighting, he began pushing himself more and more in order to appeal to his father. Soma didn't say it, but he was jealous of his little sister, despite the fact she looked up to him. This all culminated in an intense sparring match with Cell around a month before the tournament. Soma had been pushing himself harder than he ever had in these past 9 months, and he could feel it, a power beyond what he had now. He just needed to push himself that extra little step. Cell, who no longer aimed to hurt his son, despite knowing he could regenerate, would be surprised when Soma ordered him to use the Kamehameha on him. The Bugman obliged, charging one up, which his son caught easily. Take me more seriously, father. Put more power into it. Let me show you how much I've improved. Soma yelled out, readying himself for the attack. Cell hesitated for a second before realizing what this was. Of course, this was exactly how Gohan was able to improve, through being pushed. The Kamehameha swelled in size, pushing Soma back, his feet digging into the ground as his hands burned from the ki. The imperfect progeny of Cell pushed back with all his might, but the energy beam didn't budge an inch. His whole life, he had never been strong enough, and even when he got stronger, his father managed to widen the gap tenfold. Soma felt a power deep inside of him, something that could rival his father and the Saiyans. Why couldn't he summon it now? Wasn't he good enough? Wasn't he someone that could make Cell proud? The beam began getting even stronger, the android being pushed further into the earth as his hands began burning up, causing him great pain. No, this isn't how it would end. He still needed to prove his worth, still needed to hear that his father was proud of him. Soma powered up as much as he could, regenerating his hands while beginning to push the energy back. I will show you just how strong I am! Soma began to bulk up, his crown and tail changing form as well, his body going through a metamorphosis there and then, as his power skyrocketed and he pushed the beam of energy out into space. He had done it. Soma had unlocked the semi-perfect form, with a power that was now far closer to Cell's. Speaking of the Bugman, he'd congratulate his son and go to pat him on the back, only to be attacked. While the son of Cell was happy, he was also incredibly angry, and as we've seen with Cell originally, it would seem this form draws out the more angry and impatient side of the bio-androids. Either way, the two fought for a few minutes, but it really wasn't a contest. While Soma was far stronger, it still wasn't enough to beat Cell, and in this wrathful state, he was fighting sloppily, which allowed his father to secure a victory. Mei had been watching from afar and was stunned at how strong her brother had gotten, which made her immediately ask Cell to train afterwards, much to Soma's annoyance. While he expected Cell to simply leave him and begin training Mei, he instead insisted all three of them train. This of course made Soma do a double take. Was this it? Had he finally been recognized as an equal by his father? Well, he wouldn't question it. He'd immediately join his father and sister in training. The next month would be spent with intense training sessions and even more intense care by Zangia, who reminded them to rest and take it easy occasionally. Ugh, it's like you guys don't know how to relax, especially Pui Pui over there. Unfortunately, Pui Pui had taken the immeasurable power-ups pretty hard, but he never lost hope of beating Cell and actually made a pretty good sparring partner for Mei. Speaking of the girl, she had actually began showing a bit more personality, being a bossy and rather assertive lass, which Zangia liked. Overall, the last month of their training had proven to be quite fruitful, and when the time came, Cell asked everybody to sign up for the tournament. However, the only person to do so readily was Pui Pui. Mei, for all of her enthusiasm, was a bit nervous. Now, while she knew her power was great, she was afraid of messing up in front of everyone there, or even worse, losing to something the other kids had. However, Cell calmly reassured his daughter that she'd do fine, and even if she lost, he'd still be proud of her, which kinda got under Soma's skin, wishing he had gotten that treatment when he was a kid. Once the Z-Fighters got there, including Goku, everyone would be staring at the Bugman and his crew. Vegeta nearly challenged him on the spot, but to everyone's surprise, Cell announced that he wasn't fighting in the tournament. "What do you mean not fighting? What are you planning, Cell?" Vegeta waved his fist at the Bugman. "Oh, nothing, dear Prince. I'm simply here to support my children in their endeavors. Besides, if you can't defeat my son, well, you remember what happened when you let me transform." Cell smiled wryly, seeing that he was getting under Vegeta's skin. "Why you?" Vegeta went into Super Saiyan, charging Cell with his arm cocked back, only for Gohan and Soma to get between them, both powering up. Their powers were rather impressive, enough to make the Prince stop his attack. Gohan convinced Vegeta that he'd have his chance in the tournament, and besides, they'd all be there to watch Cell in case he tried anything. Vegeta would grumble, and everyone got to their places while the tournament started. Alright, so in the junior division, we'd see Mei and Trunks face off in the semifinals, with Goten winning his match, ready to face the victor. Trunks, being rather overconfident, bragged about how his father had told him all about the Cell Juniors and how they were beaten easily. "Enough talk! Get in the stands or this will be too easy!" This caught the Saiyan off guard. Usually he was the one ordering people around, and this girl had the gall to basically tell him to shut up? Trunks charged Mei, but from the start it was pretty apparent who the stronger fighter was. The fight went on for a few more minutes until Trunks had enough of being toyed with and transformed, which did even the tables for a while. He was able to start pushing Mei around with several well-placed ki attacks as well as his more ferocious punches and kicks. Nobody could tell, but in the stands, Vegeta was smugly thinking, "That's my boy," to himself. However, as quickly as he began to overwhelm Mei, she began to turn up the heat as well. "Ah, yeah, you should have started with this. You're pretty strong." Mei began to match Trunks blow for blow, and a minute later, began overwhelming the boy, a large smile covering her face. It's important to know, Mei isn't that much stronger than Trunks, but she is a better fighter. Vegeta had focused on making Trunks strong, but not so much on making him the most competent fighter. A leg sweep here, a ki blast to the face, a couple arm locks, and Trunks was left on the ground saying uncle to the little bug gal. Well, sorta. The real finishing blow came when Trunks went for a right hook and Mei ducked, grabbed his arm, and swung his body out of the ring. The crowd cheered, but Trunks threw a small tantrum, cursing his opponent for making him look bad in front of his father. "Hey, it was still fun, right?" Mei said, reaching a hand out towards Trunks to help him up. The boy looked at it, then to his father, who had a sour look. He then rejected Mei's offer and skulked off, ready for the lecture he'd get. Next up was Mei and Goten, and this fight was much more cordial, with Goten going Super Saiyan immediately and giving his opponent a hard time. During said fight, because people in Dragon Ball love talking to their opponents, Goten said he was told to beat Mei quickly, but she seemed pretty nice. The girl responded that he seemed pretty nice as well, then quickly ordered Goten to give it his A game, as she could tell he was holding something back. Now, before you say it, no, Goten doesn't have Super Saiyan 2, but he does whip something pretty insane out. Now, Goten doesn't have much personality besides being a part of Gotenks, so I had to draw some inspiration from the fusion here. During his time training with Piccolo, the Saiyan managed to figure out he had a knack for controlling ki, much like how Piccolo did with the Hellzone Grenade, or Yamcha's Spirit Ball. It's not quite a kamikaze ghost, but Goten is able to form several large spheres of ki to chase Mei down, this being called his Chaser Barrage attack. Mei is able to narrowly avoid the key spheres as they weaved around her. However, this allowed Goten to charge in and kick her, sending her nearly out of the ring. Unfortunately, right as she steadied herself, the 3 key spheres flew in, blowing up right in her face and sending her flying right onto the grass surrounding the ring. The crowd went wild, with Goten being the one to reach his hand out to Mei this time. She looked back to Cell, who simply smiled and nodded, which prompted Mei to take her new friend's hand, then running off to see Trunks afterwards. Well, once Goten defeats Mr. Saiyan, of course. Now, as for the tournament, things don't change much, although Cell is able to hear when Piccolo explains who the Supreme Kai is. One major change here is that Spopovich and Videl pretty much tie, much like how Jackie Chun and Goku did back in Dragon Ball. Although, if I had to say, Videl does win, just barely. But things progress normally, with Gohan going Super Saiyan 2 for Kibito, partially to judge himself against Soma's power. But here's where a huge change occurs. Once Spopovich, who's still healing a little, and Yamu charge in, Gohan is able to break out of Shin's hold and kicks Yamu away, while Cell of all people charges in to kick Spopovich. Come now, you two. I know you want to test your power against his, but have some common decency and wait your turn. Cell does love his tournament rules and, well, he wouldn't just sit by idly as they were being broken. Shin is a bit irked that this Bugman had ruined their plans, but luckily for him, the 2 Majin servants decided to retreat back to Babidi's ship. Like in the anime, everyone would chase after the 2 Majin servants, except for Cell and Soma, who were pretty confused as to why everyone would just up and abandon the tournament. The bio-android simply sighed before flying off to catch up with the Z-Fighters, Soma following close behind. Mei did try to go with them, but Cell told her to stay with Zangia, and she knew better than to argue with her father. Luckily, they got there just in time to hear the exposition from Shin regarding Babidi and his goons, which also means they'd arrived just in time to see Spopovich and Yamu get blown up. Well, that's usually how that would happen, but this time, Babidi would have something up his sleeves. See, the little potato man had gotten lucky when searching for strong servants, happening upon 3 fighters who knew Cell pretty well, and who had been tracking him these past couple of years. These 3 people were none other than Kogu, Bito, and Bujin, the 3 former lackeys of Bojack. And here, they had planned to ambush the Z-Fighters, and more importantly, Cell, as well as gather his energy for their new master. Right as the Z-Fighters get there, the 3 Herons would come in from behind, blowing up the mountain, which was the signal that the ambush was on. Dabura went in, using his spit to freeze Krillin and Kibito, but was soon stopped by Cell. Meanwhile, Kogu went into his full power state, ready to assault Cell, only to be stopped by Soma. Piccolo would face off against Bujin, with Gohan fighting Bito. This left Goku and Vegeta with nothing to do aside from easily get rid of Spopovich and Yamu, which left Babidi with no guards. With Shin still there, he'd say they needed to get the wizard, and with Dabura and Kogu wrapped up in their fights, well, the potato was in some serious trouble. He'd immediately teleport back into his ship, searching for a way to get rid of the 2 pure Saiyans and Kai. He'd glance at the fights his servants were having, and, well, on all accounts, they were losing, aside from Piccolo and Bujin, who were pretty even. They were gathering energy for Buu, but it still wasn't enough, and at this rate, they'd be killed. If only he had more servants. Wait a minute, he could just make more. Babidi congratulated his own genius before searching for darkness within the hearts of the Z-Fighters. Like in the anime, Vegeta would fall, and Cell would be tempted, but honestly, having a meager power-up in exchange for being subjugated was not a good deal for him. But luckily for Babidi, there was one other who he could possess. One with power far closer to Cell's than Vegeta's. Soma heard the whispers of Babidi, promising him power and recognition. The bio-android attempted to resist, but his mind was far weaker than Cell's, and he did want to become more powerful. as despite his new form, he still couldn't match his father. Babidi capitalized on this and promised he could provide enough power to not only match his father, but to become the strongest in the whole universe, something that was sure to get him recognition. On the battlefield, Cell heard Soma yelling out in pain, which caused him to kick Dabura away and look back at his child. The android was writhing around, before falling eerily silent and regaining his composure. "Soma, are you..." But Cell was silenced as his son turned around, revealing the Majin symbol and a brand new malevolent key. "Move over, father. I need to dispose of that trash, son Gohan." But that's where we're going to be leaving it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, I'd appreciate it if you transformed that like button, or maybe even Majinified that subscribe button. And guys, I'm so hyped. You guys have been subscribing and commenting more than ever, and we're so close to 300 subs. I know it doesn't seem like a lot in the grand scheme of things, but I really appreciate it. Anyways, you guys have a good day or night wherever you are. That's it for now. Bye bye.